It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to interview Mr. Michael W. Brennan, Chairman and President of Microimaging Technology, Inc., stock ticker MMTC. Mr. Brennan has spent over 30 years within the computer industry and participated in the founding of 4 companies that successfully became publicly traded corporations through IPOs, 3 on NASDAQ, and 1 on the London International Stock Exchange. Mr. Brennan's degrees are in electrical engineering from the University of Southern California and an MBA awarded by Pepperdine University. Welcome to Stock Traders Talk Radio, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. We know it's not always easy. How about if we get started with a brief history of MIT?
Fine, thank you. That's probably the appropriate place to start. MIT has been a public company for about 25 years. It was originally incorporated in 1979, and in 1987 had a $20 million underwritten public offering by D.H. Blair. I won't take this long-winded, but I want to get to our technology, and for that you should have an entryway into it. So we've been around for a long time. The company's business up until about 6 years ago was developing water purification systems. In conjunction with the water purification systems, about 8 or 9 years ago, the company wanted to develop a bacterial identification system for the sole purposes of proving that the water system was, clean and spotless, if you will. Mm-hmm. The water purification business never really got off the ground, and still our largest shareholder, a very close friend of mine, a fellow named Tony Frank, whose name might be familiar to some of you. He was our Postmaster General for many, many years, and was also Chairman and CEO of one of the nation's largest banks. Anyway, about 6 years ago, Tony asked me to come look at the company. And with my engineering background, I just didn't have much confidence in the water purification business. But I loved what they were doing in the microbial identification development path that they were on, because it was something unique. No one had anything that was similar to it. And I said, yeah, I think I'd give this a shot. So right off the bat, I sold all the assets that, including the business, that were associated with the water purification business. We renamed the company Microimaging Technology and moved the business down to much smaller facilities in San Clemente, California, and have spent the last 6.5 years moving the technology forward. So that kind of brings us to where we're at, except for a couple of very significant things that are historical. 5 years ago, or thereabouts, not knowing too much about microbiology and having a good staff of physicists and engineers, we didn't know, first of all, too much about the marketplace, and second of all, how good our product was. We were very fortunate here in California. We have a very large independent laboratory called NAMSA, and I went over, introduced myself, and asked them if they would develop, and for them to develop it, not for us to help, for them to develop an independent test to prove whether or not we really could identify the bacteria at the levels that we thought would be commercial. And that was with our prototype systems. They did a study for about 4 months. The results were fantastic, and the studies are available from the company. They carry the studies out against industry standard systems, and we were just really, really pleased with the results. So that's about 5 years ago, I'll say, when we got the results. Okay. So then I got with some of our other larger shareholders, including Tony Frank, and we decided that we had enough confidence in the system that we would now build a half a dozen, for lack of a better word, pre-production models. And we did that. The thing to keep in mind when we talk about our technology, there's nothing that we know of even similar to it. We don't use any chemicals, we don't use any dyes, we don't use any microbiologists to run the system. You just take your bacterial sample, put it in clean water, put it in our laser-based system, push a button, and in about anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, you'll get the results on the bacteria's identification, and at a cost literally of 2 cents, 3 cents a test. So after we built those systems and we put them out in some places like the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Japanese Ministry of Food Safety, one of the big universities in Malaysia, and a couple of independent private labs here in the United States, we then had enough confidence to, because we didn't want to go in the manufacturing business, so we took the whole project to a real world-class manufacturing company called OSI Systems. They've got factories all over the world, and the main corporate headquarters are close to us. They're here in Hawthorne, California. So just about a year ago, we signed a contract with them. Oh, I left out a big step. No, I did. This is an important one, and it cost us a year and a half in time. That's why I was just thinking backwards. In the food safety business, which is the marketplace we're really focusing on, there are really no government standards. You don't have like the FDA or anybody else. You've got recommendations.
Right.
So there's no like a real achievement test other than another independent internationally acclaimed laboratory called AOAC. AOAC is got laboratories all over the world. They're like the gold standard for anything in the food business. But they never saw a system like ours that wasn't, biochemistry based. So we started about a year and a half project with them for them to give us a certification for one of the pathogens, one of the bad bacteria. And because they'd never seen a system like ours, they had to start from scratch to develop, the process of the system any good. So they looked at the hardware, the software, the documentation, the ease of use for the operator, the ruggedness of the system. That took about a year, maybe a little bit longer. And when we finally finished that, the first bug we had to test was Listeria, which is one of the 3 main pathogens in contaminated food. And we scored well over 95% of that in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tests. So now segueing back into when I interrupted myself, now we knew we really had something. We had the 2 highest authorities that you could go to. So we went down to OSI, and we worked out a deal with them for them to take our pre-production units and turn them into real production units. We got the first production units, small quantity of them, I think less than a dozen, something a long time ago now, but at the first of this year. And so then we started, throwing as many tests at the pre-production units as we could to make sure that, we maintained the standards and all the rest of that. So that's sort of the history up until where we're at right now. The system's very, very simple, and it's elegant. I say it with, 40 years of engineering experience. And it's also inexpensive to build. And each system is the same. Right now in the world of food poisoning, there are 3 pathogens. There's E. coli, there's Salmonella, and there's Listeria. As I said, Listeria is the most toxic, if you will. So that's the one we picked first. Starting in the first week in December, we are starting a path with AOAC to get certifications for the other 2. And we're smart enough that we've already passed all the tests internally, so we know that's just a matter of going out for certifications. The system has 3 basic components. An optical unit that takes a low-powered laser beam and shoots it through a tiny little vial that has a sample, a very small sample, of whatever bacteria you're trying to identify. You put it in the vial, turn the laser on, as I said, within a couple of minutes you have the answer.
You mean almost instantly?
Almost instantly. And more importantly, the only ingredient you have to have in there is clean water. You don't need any dyes. You don't need any reagents. You don't have to microbiologist to do this. You can literally train someone to use our system and all the lab work in about 2 days. I'm not talking about somebody with multiple college degrees. I'm talking about just someone that would be comfortable around working, with computer equipment. So the optical system is the basis. The second part is we've got exhaustive software that we developed in conjunction with Caltech. First of all, I should say quickly that all the optical parts of our system are well patented. Then you've got the software. And then coming out of our optical unit, which was a huge improvement for us that we put in last year, is a USB connector. So literally you can now connect this to your own computer, or you can buy a computer. And the software that you need as the user from a space point of view is pretty small. The big software suite's what we use in our laboratory to identify the bacteria. So that's sort of the product offering. We've got a fair amount of consumables that go with that. We've got a very inexpensive clean water system that we suggest you use. We've got the vials, the little vials that you put in our system, and all the rest of the, whatever laboratory equipment you may or may not have.
Sure. Can I go back just a little bit? When you mentioned AOAC, I mean, are they considered like, I guess the certifying body? I mean,
yeah, they're really the gold standard, and I'm glad you said that. That's an excellent question. If you go look at some competitive, when I say competitive products now, I'm talking about things that identify microbes rapidly like we do. There are a good number of them on the market, none of them using the technology that we do, but if you look at some of the main players like 3M, and you look at their products, you'll see that they have the AOAC certification as well. But there's nothing higher than that, if you will. I mean, NAMSA was good, but AOAC is the standard. So when you're taking it to an independent lab or what have you, to sell the product, these people would all like to know that you are certified for, those three bugs, which make up practically 90+% of all the pathogens in food. The nice part, if you wanted another bug added to our system library, you tell us what the bug is, and we could put it in the library in about 4 weeks. So it's highly expandable.
So if I get this correctly, earlier you said that per test it was around 2 cents. I mean, that sounds really low cost to me. Is that? I mean, how does that play into being able to instantly do this? Teach somebody.
Well, if you look at any other process, and the other processes, leaving ours alone right now, there are really only two real types. The first one has been around for over 150 years, and that's standard microbiology. When you just take your sample, you take it to the lab, give it to a microbiologist, they start running all the tests, and maybe 3 to 5 days later they'll tell you what the bug is. That's been, like the industry standard forever. Then, I don't know, say maybe 8-10 years ago, we started developing products in the industry around cellular technology, where you use DNA, with very, very expensive systems. And there's a lot of companies that use DNA or some hybrid of DNA. And very expensive systems. Takes a real microbiologist to run the system. And the key there is very expensive and takes anywhere from 4 to 6 times longer than we do, including preparing all the samples and all the rest of that.
Understand. I'd like to dive into the whole training aspect.
Let me go back to the question,
Sure.
which I just given you the foreplay for, if you will.
Sure.
The only thing you have to have, and this is why we quote the low price, which we can prove, only thing you have to have is a clean vial, which we sell, and you can use them over and over and over again, and clean water. And then you put your sample in that, put it in our system, and push the button. There's nothing else. Any of these other processes, whether it's laboratory or whether it's DNA, or there's some new ones out from a company called Crystal Diagnostics. Thermo Fisher's got some DNA products out. There's a new system out by Sigma Aldrich called the Hybrid Scan. All of these systems, the system part, if you will, the software and the mechanism are expensive. But moreover, every time you're doing a test, you're using some kind of reagent, some kind of chemical, some kind of platform that is extremely expensive. So when we talk about, you can take our 2 cents up to 5 cents if you want. If you're even more comfortable, you can take it up to a dime. But everyone else costs anywhere from $6 to $15 to $18 a test. And remember, the key is that we get results anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I noticed that you had a webinar. I'm no microbiologist, and it seemed I went through it and was listening to it, and it seemed very clear and concise. And I'm trying to. It's
really easy to use. My words don't express it enough. But compared to anything else I've seen, you prepare a sample, you literally put it in this little glass vial, put that in our system, put the cover back on, and push a button. And on the screen, it'll tell you what what the bacteria is identified of. And if there's no identity, it'll tell you there's no identity. And the thing that we expect to be able to deliver by the end of the first quarter is all 3 bugs that are certified. So, you go look to whatever you're trying to test for and take your bacteria sample and put it in the system and push the button, and that's it.
Oh, wow. So regarding your development cycle, you've described pieces of it where you've spent, a long time, coming up with these ideas, building the prototypes, getting the certifying, and as well as pretty much the entire training piece of this to make something, easily used by a consumer or a lab and at a low cost. I guess the next thing that you're going to be doing is going through, mass production of the product and then, into a marketing type concept out to the general public. Is that safe to assume?
Absolutely. But I want to stress again what a wonderful manufacturing partner we've got and what a beautiful product it is, and also how cheap it is to manufacture.
No, that's great. Now, you want to go into the system applications at all? I didn't know how deep you wanted to go into your actual product from that aspect.
Well, the interesting part about it is there's no change to our software or to the hardware or anything involved with the system when you're looking for any of the bugs. We talk about the 3 major bugs because that is the contaminants in food. But right now we have the ability and have proven it to identify well over 20 species of bacteria. But the 3 that we're talking about have been responsible for just recently, maybe some of your listeners will have heard or noticed the cantaloupe contamination in Colorado. That was responsible for killing somewhere between 30 and 40 people. Earlier this year, we had the cucumbers in Europe. You go down the list. We've had celery, we've had black pepper, we've had beef, we've had cheese, we've had lettuce, we've had luncheon meat, frozen vegetables, lobsters, raw meats, and cheeses. Those things have all been responsible for thousands of hospitalizations per year and millions of dollars in healthcare costs. But moreover, you've also got the recall of all those products. So we can, if somebody is a cantaloupe farmer, I guess you'd call them a farmer, right? Mm-hmm. And they want to set up a line to test, I don't know, have to, talk to one of the microbiologists about it, but test every 20th cantaloupe. You take a sample. Sure. And you put it in our system after you do what's called culturing, which everybody has to do. That's when So one of the key aspects of your product is you're getting in the pipeline before it gets to the grocery stores and out to the general public. Absolutely.
Wow, that's I'm not exactly sure how big the market is. I'm sure. Are you aware how big the market is for this?
The U.S. market, as it stands right now, just for what we're talking about, for testing, is $3.5 billion a year, and it's expected to go to $5 billion within the next couple of years. Because I don't know how it's going to evolve, but our government passed a new food safety law at the beginning of this year. They just haven't funded it yet. But if they start putting some pressure on the food processors to, improve their quality, that would be significant. The food safety market in the rest of the world, which patterns almost anything else you can think of, is equally as large. So if you said worldwide it's a $10 billion or bigger market, that's what you're looking at. And our key to it, it's a market that's well served. I mean, it's not served as well as I'd like it to be.
Sure.
As I said, we talked about the DNA and the RNA and PCR, very expensive products. We talked about classical, laboratory biochemistry. Those things are all available, but none of them give you results in a few minutes and a cost of, if we want to go 10 cents or lower, I'm safe because we've got, I've got 5 feet worth of documents by independent laboratories that prove that what we say we're doing.
This is really interesting. I'm going to take you down a path here. Just hopefully I can ask this question correctly. All right. Everybody around, of course, eats different foods, and a lot of the items that you mentioned, the romaine lettuce one, I remember that one. That wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
The process for food to be screened now before it gets to the consumer, is that where they take a sample of that and they send it to a lab, and that's where that whole 3-day process gets employed?
That's what they should be doing.
Okay, so
when I say should be doing, there's some big producers, especially in the fast food world,
right?
Without naming some names, but I could. They don't do any testing at all. They feel that if you get food poisoning from eating a hamburger, that's you probably first of all can't prove it goes back to them, and even if you could, that's just their price of doing business. And if you have a few deaths along the way, like with Cantaloupe in Colorado, that again is the price of doing business. Now I'll tell you how that's significantly changing. There's some big retailers like the one we know out here best, probably in California, is Costco.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real big one. You got a little one out here called Jumbo Juice that specialize in all kinds of juices. Both of these companies, and one's a giant, the other one's pretty small, but now they are demanding from their food producer or food supplier, I guess, certificates of testing, and I think that's going to keep happening. And so when that's happening, you're going to find a tremendous I don't know if desire is the right word, but a tremendous need for the kind of product we've got. And I think our cost is so low that if a food producer took our system and used it in line, just like you talked about, that was a heck of an equation here. If he used it in line for processed meat or cheese or lettuce or whatever, but rigorously used it in line, I think he could probably also get insurance companies to start thinking about insuring the risk.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm instantly thinking of, how the U.S. Department of Agriculture would, all it takes is this to be in a system in a couple key spots, and it would essentially become a requirement. Because one thing that you said earlier is your testing is instant, and it can be done by anybody in a couple of days of training. I mean, that's correct.
That's correct. And what you could do, just carrying that forward, because this is where we can start getting excited about the product. Let's say you're producing hamburger. There's been some huge hamburger recalls over the last 2 or 3 years. And last year, I think there was over 1 billion eggs that were recalled, if you remember that, in the Midwest. So what if you have a production line that's putting out, the beef or the eggs or what have you? These systems are so inexpensive to run. You set up a little laboratory in your food processing factory, and you set it in line. Now, the one thing that the USDA and the FDA have put out, which are excellent, are guides to take sampling. In other words, if you got the cantaloupe, or you got the lettuce, or you got the beef, they'll tell you exactly how to sample that product. There's no enforcement there for you to do it. They're just telling you how to do it if you want to. So you could set up our system in line before your beef got packaged or your fish got packaged or whatever. And, there's literally no delay. If you were a conscientious food producer right now, and it takes you 3 days to test your fish, you literally would keep your fish, on the shelf until you got the blessing to start putting it out the door.
This is just amazing to me. It really, really is. And I'm not, trying to, push this up for, what it is, but, I'm sitting here I'm thinking about this, and you can save lives, and with, the USDA, all it takes is him to see this and make a piece of this mandatory to where.
But they won't do that, and they won't. We have a great relationship with them. They were our independent labs for the ALHC test. They took one of our systems back there, about one of our first ones, about 2.5, 3 years ago, and they love the system. But they will not endorse, I mean, we can tell you who to talk to there, but they won't endorse a product. That's not their function.
Amazing. I guess that kind of makes sense because they don't make the guidance and laws from that aspect, but it just seems to be a common sense approach to being a consumer that if you have a product that can save lives by testing something instantly and at a very low cost prior to getting into grocery stores, that just seems like a no-brainer to me.
I couldn't agree with you more. But again, you've got one of the problems in the high-tech world. If you've got a brand new technology, first of all, you got to be very cautious, like our development cycles have been about what you've got. You know, we've proven it with independent laboratory tests. We've proven it by having one of the world's best manufacturers manufacture it for us. So I think we've proven from the point of view that we're no longer in the development stage. We're now ready to go into the marketing and manufacturing stage.
And that could be a big piece of the timing of that. So it might be, part of those, some of those conversations are probably be, I'm sure you have in your plans to, reopen some of those.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's kind of shift to, from an investor standpoint. I mean, here you are with what I would call a revolutionary product, and I'm sure you agree with all the time that you have. 9 years in development, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you're midway through your certification cycle. How much longer do you expect that to take?
Well, I'm glad you asked it that way. I don't think I would say midway. I would say we're probably 80% of the way. When I was thinking midway, I was thinking the fact that we've got one bug certified and we've got 2 more to do. But on the 2 more to do, our system doesn't have to be certified now. All we're doing is going to independent labs that the AOAC will, accept their testing results. And when we give the package to AOAC in December, we're now only talking about maximum 2 to 3 months for testing just on the accuracy. They're not looking at the system components anymore. They're not looking at our documentation anymore. They're not looking at the user, facility anymore. They're just looking for accuracy right now. So when we finish those 2 bugs, that's it for well over 90% of the contaminants in food.
So you're on the verge, aren't you?
We think so.
Wow. I mean, it's got to be exciting times at the company. I'm just going to kind of keep walking through this step. All right, so your next piece of this is you've already set up your manufacturing partner.
Yep.
Can you say who that was again?
OSI Systems. It's about $1 billion company. The OSI on NASDAQ. The heart of our system, besides being the laser, is the photoreceptors. Not to get too technical, but that's the stuff that detects what's called light scattering. And OSI is one of the premier manufacturers of photodetectors, so they were a natural for us to go to. And when you start seeing the system, we start getting more publicity out. Or go to our website, which is very simple, www.micro-imaging.com. It's an unbelievably simple system, but it's just, we had the laboratory stuff that we had to make sure was right. We had the hardware that we had to make sure was right.
Sure.
And we had to have the certifications that were right. So, we start adding all those things together and time flies.
It sounds like you've done all your homework and have planned accordingly and really marched to your business plan and your strategic objectives. I guess where I want to kind of lean now is, have you done any forecasting models on where you anticipate revenue? I mean, you have a revolutionary product, which is probably difficult to do because you're entering a huge marketplace with billions of dollars. Have you done anything like that at all, or can you touch on that?
Absolutely. The key to putting a brand new product out, whether you want to call it revolutionary or what have you, which I've done for a long, long time, is to do it from a conservative point of view and make sure that when you put the product out there, it sticks, if you follow what I'm saying.
Sure.
So we believe we've got homes for the first 6 months' worth of our product just by our own direct sales taking them to end users. And the end users there are independent laboratories, large food processors, people that are using some kind of system at the moment. And the idea is to put ours in parallel with their system, have the endorsements with like USDA and the Japanese ministry and what have you. And then in addition to that, there are a number of really large players in the food safety business that have products of their own, whether they're DNA or whether they're PCR or what have you, that when they look at our product and they know that this could fit right beside their own offering and for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars less, provide the user the same sort of food safety that they need to save the thousands of lives and the millions in healthcare costs. And interesting, if you look forward to, we haven't done this because it would be a big tangent for us, but we focused on food because that's the largest segment in the marketplace. But we can also do the same exact thing in determining the quality of water, which is how we got our start, obviously. And we can do it for fungi, we can do it for protozoa, we can do it for all kinds of things that are in the microbe size. So you got a huge upside besides the maybe $10 billion worldwide market we're looking at right now.
Oh, absolutely, and not to mention the amount of lives that potentially could be saved, and as far as the medical costs associated with that. I mean, the healthcare costs are probably astronomical from that aspect.
Absolutely, you hit it right on the head. I mean, you can go to any journal that you want to, and I'll tell you, just in the United States, we've got thousands and thousands of cases of food poisoning which require hospitalization. And we've got, and I see these not every day, but often, and at least 5,000 to 7,000 deaths every year attributed to one of these three contaminants in food particles.
Amazing.
Food products.
Amazing. So here I am, Mr. Brennan. I'm a potential investor, and I'm listening to this radio show, and I hear the product. I hear the long chain of time to get to this stage, the certification. You've clearly have articulated exactly where you're going and how you're going to get there. And one thing about being investors, you always want your investment to go up, and you're looking at this, and this, to me, this just seems like one of those ones where it's today it's whatever your stock price is at, and instantly can change drastically based off of potential contracts or back orders or anything like that. I mean, is that how you're seeing this?
Well, I see that absolutely, and you articulated that very well. I also see it from another point of view. We put over the long haul well over $20 million into this development phase. And it's primarily been funded by, less than a handful of major investors. Tony's the largest, our CFO is one of the largest, I'm one of the largest, and we can pick about another 5 or 6. We've also sold some convertible bonds. We've diluted the stock because we needed to keep raising equity to fund this thing. So you've got two things. This is the back end of the answer that you just gave, which was totally correct. We put a lot of money into it, our own money. We've got too many shares out in the marketplace right now, which gives you a very, very low price, very low price. The good news on the low price, which right now is, hovering around a penny a share, the good news for that is there's, for the last 2 years, there's been plenty of volume in the share price. Plenty of volume in shares on a daily basis. So for someone that wants to believe in this for a little while, because we've got over 1,000 shareholders. You can look at it as a penny stock gamble. Going back to what you said, I think that once we get some product out and more footprints in the marketplace, the natural one would be to bring probably a reverse split, get the share price up where we think we are, and then keep just growing our business model.
Well, I mean, even from the business model standpoint, I mean, I find it intriguing that there's one little piece that you said in this, and that was you picked the world-class manufacturer company. I think it was OSI Systems.
Correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume you pick them due to the fact that you can surge in volume based off of orders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for them to build, first of all, I don't even think they're volume limited. I mean, they've got huge factories, and one of the major things that they build are these photoreceptors, which is the key to our system.
Sure.
And there's nothing else proprietary in it. So it's the only thing that will happen is we start building more product, the price will go down, but our manufacturing cost is pretty low to start with compared to what we think our, sales price can be.
Well, I got to tell you, sir, this is pretty refreshing. I mean, let me. There's a couple key things you've said in this interview that are just are not your typical, OTC company. I'm just going to say that. You basically, you explained the share price. You've explained, some of the dilution you've had to be able to get where you are now. You've shown the way forward. You've even said, potentially a reverse split in that process, which, clearly you're being very honest with shareholders, which most would appreciate somewhat. That's just the nature of the business.
This is first. Let me just emphasize one of the places I think you're going. I would like to recommend anybody that's interested in this to go either to our website and look at our financial filings, or go to NASDAQ and look at our SEC Gov and look at our filings. We overly report compared to any OTC company I've just about ever seen. But that's because the colleagues that I work with on a daily basis down here, we're not used to dealing with penny stocks, and we don't think we'll be there forever. So we err on the reporting side. So you can see going to there where our sources of funds are. Even though we got a terrible balance sheet, we would expect nothing else since we have no revenue to speak of. So, we just keep plugging through that until,
sure.
So, we get there.
I mean, the bottom line at the end of the day, you have a business plan and a strategy and a marketing plan and a forecast of where you want to be, and you're driving to that goal. I mean, that's why I'm saying, I've interviewed a lot of companies, and, there's a lot of forward thinking. There's a lot of thought process that goes into that. But clearly you have a plan, a product, and, operations is your goal. The stock is not your product. The product is going to do exactly what it is.
You're 100% right. That's well said.
Kudos to you. I'm sure your shareholders are very fortunate to have somebody of your mettle leading the way. I've asked you a lot of questions regarding your company, what you do, and from an investor standpoint. Is there anything I failed to ask you that you would like to address?
No, I think you did a really good job of leading me through the things that I think will be germane without getting overly technical with your audience. Look, I'll just say one more time to bore somebody, but we think we've done a very, very good job with our website. It's got the webinar on there. It goes through the product really, really well. Once we bring out the new product, which I said would probably be towards the end of the first quarter, we'll update it because the new product is, even though the inside of it is exactly the same as what we built so far, it's just really, really nice looking. And we're pleased with it. And I'll say, just to re-emphasize what you said, and it was a great ending that you were leading up to, and I hope I didn't take your thunder, but we set the goals in the business plan when I joined the company 6 years ago or thereabouts, and we sold off the water purification business. Other than the technical staff, we brought in a new CFO, we brought in an executive vice president. Their resumes are great. And the goals haven't changed. We had to modify our business plan because I don't think, if you asked me truthfully 6 years ago, would I think it'd take 6 years to get to where we're at now? No, I would have said maybe 3. But that's because, we didn't know the length of time of, the NAMSA review or the AOAC review. I mean, these things are just stuff you have to go through.
Sure. Understandable. Well, Mr. Brennan, it's been great having you on the show, and I really look forward to checking in on your company 6 months to a year down the line to see exactly where you are. Expect great things, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be with us.
My pleasure, and I'll see if I can get a press release out for you guys tonight so people will know where they can, where we're at, and again, reiterate what we're doing. And I thank you guys very much for inviting us to join you.
All right, sir. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks again.
All right.
Good night, guys.
Good night. That was Mr. Michael Brennan, the CEO, the chairman and president of Micro Imaging Technology, stock ticker MMTC.